everyone, I'm so glad you're joining me as we enter our second week of our series, What Was I Made For? In it, we're talking all about our identity, belonging, and where we should find our sense of value. And to get us started, let's play a quick game of Would You Rather? But with things that you'd really love to own or just have more of. Would you rather own a new iPhone or a new iPad? Would you rather get new Nike shoes or new Adidas shoes? Would you rather go on a cool vacation or go on a really cool shopping spree? Would you rather have your crush like you back or have a pass to never do chores again? Would you rather have a ton of followers on social media or get all A's on your report card? Would you rather have unlimited tacos or unlimited burgers for the rest of your life? We all have different ideas of what we think we want, right? And while there's nothing wrong with wanting the next new thing, it's not so great when we start to compare what we have and don't have to others. That can lead us to believe that our importance relies on what we have. In fact, I found myself falling into the comparison trap when I was in middle school. All of my friends were starting to get cell phones, and I was the only one that wasn't allowed to get one. They could all text each other, they could all call each other, and I was stuck not talking to anybody. The problem with the way that I was thinking, and maybe you struggle with this too, is that it creates a habit of believing that you are what you have. And for me, feeling like I didn't have a cell phone led me to believe that I had less value than my friends. Maybe for you, it's different. You might feel like you don't have the money to get clothes and shoes from that one store that everybody else does, or it could be a desire to have a better phone, more video games, different parents, better grades. The list could go on and on. Whatever you struggle with, it can bring these feelings of insecurity. Like somehow you don't measure up because of what you don't have. Then because of that, you start imagining what it would be like if you just had a little bit more of what you think you're missing. The thing is, wanting better grades isn't bad. Clothes and nice outfits are not bad. Fun experiences are certainly not bad, and feeling insecure from time to time is totally normal, especially when you're going through so many changes. The problem is when we get lost in our insecurities and lose our identity trying to collect all the things we wish we had. When we become so focused on what we don't have, we lose sight of who we truly are. When we let insecurities take over, it's so easy to believe the lie that we are what we have. The good news is that you don't have to believe that lie. Jesus shared something in what some think is his most famous teaching, called the Sermon on the Mount. And what Jesus said can help us when we struggle with how we view ourselves. Here's what Matthew, one of Jesus' followers, wrote that Jesus said. "That is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life. Whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear, isn't life more than food and your body more than clothing? Look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. And aren't you far more valuable to him than they are? Can all your worries add a single moment to your life?" Jesus knew and understood the tendency to get wrapped up in comparing what we have to what other people have. And if we're not careful, we can easily sacrifice our identity by constantly focusing on what everyone else has and is doing. But Jesus redirected that idea. Instead of focusing on all the things that you might not have or feel like you don't have enough of, you can look out at nature and let it remind you of how God works. When we look at the birds, we don't see them hoarding things. We see them finding God's love in nature because even though they're just birds, God cares and provides for them. Jesus' whole point was that since God cares about the well-being of birds, just imagine how much more valuable we are to God. The beauty of that concept is that the value God sees in us has nothing to do with what we have and everything to do with God's love for us. Jesus continued by saying, "And why worry about your clothing? Look at the lilies of the field and how they grow. They don't work or make their clothing, yet Solomon in all his glory was not dressed as beautifully as they are. And if God cares so wonderfully for wildflowers that are here today and thrown into the fire tomorrow, he will certainly care for you. Why do you have so little faith?" Jesus says that Solomon, one of Israel's most wealthy kings, was not dressed as beautifully as a field of lilies. See again, Jesus has us look at nature. Have you ever seen a field of lilies? Lilies come in all different colors and color combinations, and when you see an entire field of them, you get a glimpse of God's artwork. So Jesus' point here was that since God took the time to create lilies so beautifully, and God cares for wildflowers even though they wither and fade away, then just imagine the ways God can provide for you. Just imagine how much more value we have to God. It can be difficult to believe, though. We live in a society that loves to place value on external things and what you can contribute or achieve. On social media, people post the great things they get or the fun things they do. At school, you might see people wear new outfits or have the trendiest pair of sneakers. At band practice, you might not have the best gear, or at soccer, other people might have newer cleats than you. Sometimes when you notice these things, it can wear you down and discourage you. That's what insecurity does. It slowly takes away your ability to feel confident about your value. But that's not how God sees you or operates. Where we would find value in the clothes we wear or the type of bag we have to carry all our stuff, or whether our shoes have a well-known name or not, God finds value in our natural selves just as we are. Things you have add zero value to you in God's eyes. That's such a switch from how we've come to see value in our world. What Jesus teaches is that you are made for more than what you have. There's a tendency to forget that. But when you think about what you were truly made for, what your value is based on, it has nothing to do with what you own, how many important stories you have about yourself, or what you hope your social media post tells your followers. It has nothing to do with your grades, your appearance, whether or not people laugh at your jokes, or how much money you and your family have. In those verses, God tells us that value is not about having a lot of possessions. Trying to gain more things like attention or better clothes is a lot to worry about. And God doesn't want us worrying about things like that, because we already have enough to worry about on a daily basis. Getting more things is an extra worry God knows we don't need. Jesus said it like this: so don't worry about these things, saying, what will we eat? What will we drink? What will we wear? And then we jump ahead and Jesus finishes his thought this way: so don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. And it's no secret that worrying about whether or not you'll get what you think you're missing can dominate your thoughts. Thoughts like that can consume you, and these thoughts can be valid, especially when you have basic needs not being met, like where you'll get your next meal, or if you'll have enough money to get clothes that actually fit you, or if your electricity will be turned off at home. If that's you, I encourage you to talk to an adult that you trust to help you navigate those needs. And your small group leader is a great place to start in getting the help that you need and turning to God with your needs and your worries. And when Jesus shared that we shouldn't focus on what we don't have, he wasn't saying that food, clothing, and shelter aren't important. Those are some of the most basic needs we have in order to live. Jesus' point was more about comparison, that we shouldn't get caught up in worrying about whether we're eating food that other people have, or wearing the coolest shoes, or living in a giant home with a pool. When we compare what we have to what others have, that's when Jesus says we need to focus on who we truly are, not what we have. Jesus reminds us that God, the creator of the whole universe, already knows what you need. God knows what you think you lack or are missing out on. God knows about the things you want and the things you think having will add to your value. But we can't forget Jesus' instruction to seek the kingdom of God above all else. Instead of seeking more attention, experiences, or materials, our job is to seek God. In God's kingdom, we all have natural value inside of us because of God's love. Nothing we say, do, or have lessens or adds to the natural God-given value. You were made for more than what you have. The reality is, for some of us, knowing it, believing it, and living it out can be difficult. So if it's so difficult, where do we even start when it comes to separating our sense of value from what we have? I think we can ask ourselves some questions to get us started. First, ask yourself, where do you think you need more? What are the things that bring out your insecurities? When do you feel like you don't measure up or have enough? It's important to identify those because they are the areas where you need to untangle what you have from your sense of value. Next, it's important to ask, what do you already have in those areas where you think you need more? Make a list of those things that you can be thankful for. What natural gifts and talents did God give you? Who in your life offers support and love? And what things do you currently have that you may take for granted? Then I want you to ask yourself, what can you trust God to provide for you? Where can you let go of your worry and insecurity and trust that God will show up for you and provide? And finally, ask yourself, how can you seek God while trusting? How can you shift your focus to God rather than on what you think you need more of? When you know what you're insecure about and you want more of, when you know what you do already have, when you know what you need to trust God to provide for you, and when you seek God as you trust, the way you see yourself and others begins to shift. Instead of thinking that having certain things boosts your value, you start to see your value as God does. You start to see that you are made for more than what you have. It's difficult to feel valuable when you think you're lacking something. But when you know what you can be grateful for and what you're made for, it gets easier to understand your value. It even gets easier to see the value in others. So when you head to your small groups, think about this. What's one thing you already have based on your God-given value?